I was in my early 20s when my mother gifted me a popular self-help book. The title was He's Just Not That Into You, The No Excuses Truth to Understanding Guys. Yeah, which already felt like a bold move until she told me that she dog-eared, highlighted, and starred important chapters and quotes in the book that she thought I could really benefit from. I mean, let's be honest, I read that book like it was my personal Bible. I would also go on to bring this gift exchange up to every therapist I've ever met, which is a lot. I have a love-hate relationship with self-help books, mostly because the only ones I've read were more about love and how it pertains to making it work between you and another person, like He's Just Not That Into You, or Why Men Love Bitches. And more recently, Codependent No More. I've had a harder time committing to self-help books that revolve around, just loving and bettering yourself for yourself. I've tried, but it all just seems like a lot of work. Reading meditation books about meditation did nothing to contribute to me actually ever meditating. I tried whipping out Eckhart Tolle, The Power of Now, on a quiet beach vacation. It was like, yeah, I get it, Eckhart. Be present. But how could he expect me to be present when I needed to stress about all of the things that have ever happened in my life and all of the things that could or could not happen in my life? Now, I did read and practice The Secret. However, I was pretty bummed when my poster board collage of dreams like working with director Cameron Crowe, owning Malibu vacation homes, and winning multiple Golden Globes didn't just spontaneously become my reality. I mean, you cannot say that I never tried to be a self-help student. But the truth is, I am so jealous of anyone who's able to rattle off quotes or philosophies from psychologists or teachers who've been able to specialize in writing a digestible how-to about living a happy, productive life. People who read and practice what they learn in a self-help book makes me feel like they are better at being a grown-up than I am. But just how Instagram is the highlight reel of our lives, does reading self-help books actually give us a reliable guide on how to help ourselves? Or is it just setting us up with unattainable goals of perfection that nobody ever really reaches? Like, could I be someone who meditates and has healthy friendships and relationships and knows how to be a great parent that understands the work-life balance, all while making organic farmers market dinners before getting a full night's rest so that I can walk into my business meeting with an attitude that tells a room full of executives, I am a confident girl boss, damn it, and I know my self-worth? Can I be all these things in one person if I just read all those popular self-help books and really commit to their teachings? Jolenta Greenberg and Kristen Meinzer had this same question back in 2017 when they started By the Book, a half reality show, half self-help podcast, where each episode they choose a different self-help book to live by, following every rule down to the letter to find out which ones might actually be life-changing. Today on Superbloom, we are diving into the world of self-help with two women who may not have written all the self-help books, but they sure as hell have read them and lived them all. I kind of been sharing my own self-help story experience in the intro to this, which is really funny because I mentioned a book that you guys just covered recently, and it ties in perfectly to, it's a lot of the reasons why I'm in therapy, I think, right now in general. But one of the books my parents gifted me when I was like 18 and I'm like, young, and I'm going off into the world. And it's very interesting. My dad gave me books that were all about like making money, like how to make $1 million. And then my mom gave me a book, He's Just Not That Into You. Like that was the book that she gave me as like a self-help book. And then she'd also like double down and starred certain sections and highlighted important key quotes that she thought would be beneficial to me blossoming as a young woman. What was your first self-help book that you either sought out or was given to you?
Oh my gosh. In my entire life? Oh,
Yeah.
there were so many. Just because I feel like I was brought up in that era where I feel like Oprah had a different self-help book every week on her show that she was shilling, right? Um, and oh my gosh, I'm trying to remember a specific one, but I will say this, I was brought up very much in a diet-focused household, and I put diet books in the same category as self-help. Um,
Right.
Interesting.
I consider them just, you know, th they have all the same tropes as other self-help books. You're broken, this is what's wrong with you, here's how to fix it. If it worked for me, it can work for anyone, and
Mhm.
here's, a bananas idea of how to lose 30 pounds in 10 days. And, I was definitely brought up in a household where that was part of part of what it was to be a woman, was to be on a diet all the time.
For me, the first one I remember is Tyra's Beauty Inside and Out, which was like sort of a Tyra, but it's like you had to have been like a very kind of specific old millennial to like get that book.
Yeah.
Where it was like Next Top Model had just premiered. Tyra and her mom were like sort of female icons of like beauty and self-care, and this book was
Mhm.
aimed towards younger women. I was sort of a tween, I think, and it was about like how to take care of yourself and like have self-respect, but also like do makeup and have boys like you. So, you know.
Was this pre-Smize? Like, was there a Smize chapter or not yet?
I
Because we were,
don't
like,
think
just
Smize
kicking
had
off.
been like fully coined yet.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. What a thing to coin, the Smize.
I
Like,
know.
just the Smize.
It
It is
stuck.
very funny, though, because out of those books and you guys had just recently covered on your podcast a book that made me giggle, Why Men Love Bitches.
Ah,
I
yes.
100% purchased that book. I spent money purchasing that
Yes.
book as like a young, like formative woman being like, this is my ticket. This is my
Right.
between that and the game, I was just like, guys, I'm gonna really nail what it means to be an adult in the world.
Well, how did it work for you? We need to hear. We need to
Oh
hear.
gosh, terribly. I'm like the ultimate people pleaser that is like, please just, especially with like the opposite sex, who I just had always been like a young girl who never had the guts to really talk to guys until I started going to parties and
Mm.
really healthy plan. Just like go to
Right.
parties,
Right.
had my first like 4 Coronas, and then suddenly I'm like talking to the quarterback of the football team and make a total embarrassment of myself. So these books were just like moth to a flame. Like they have the ticket on how I can like attract the guy without making a fool of myself. And it's like, oh, I just need to be a bitch or just accept that he doesn't really like me. And maybe within that, and even do you guys remember the game? Like
Oh,
that
yeah.
book, it was Neil
Oh yeah,
Strauss
totally.
who'd really, oh my gosh,
Just a
I just
pickup artist
remember
book, really.
yes. And I
Yeah.
specifically remember this chapter and like me being a little like club girl in LA, like a party girl, in
Mm.
my youth. And all of a sudden there was this huge trend of dudes just whipping out magic tricks at the bar, like in the
Oh my
club.
gosh. Oh
And
my
I was just
gosh.
like, holy shit. This is like a thing now. Like this is like they really think that this is gonna work. This doesn't work. I mean, it
Oh
would
my
work
gosh,
because
what is that
all of
behind
the
your ear? Is it a
yes.
quarter?
Like I just have
Is
to
it
have
my
these
number?
cards.
Yes. But it's just wild that out of the trajectory of both the books that were given to me, like it's not like I went out and purchased more finance books. I really focused my attention on like dating and relationship books. And then as I got older, you know, I had a really hard time ever latching on to any sort of self-help about like bettering myself or really being present minded or knowing my self-worth. Like it just became one giant eye roll. So at what point did you guys, when you started your podcast by the book, were you like, oh, this is going to be funny? Or you're like, no, I really love self-help. This is something that has guided me before, and we're going to use this as a journey.
I was in the latter camp. I was working like 3 jobs at the time, one of which was admin for a news radio show. And when you work in news, you get sent books unsolicited by like publicists and publishing houses. And I would hoard all the self-help books we got and be like, one of these will tell me how to like get my life together, get on a proper trajectory, get like a man, have it all. And I was very, very hopeful that like I just hadn't found the right one or hadn't lived by the advice like strictly enough. Kristen was not.
No, I went into it very much as a skeptic, somebody who was like, really, should I believe these people? Seems like most of them were born on third base and they're saying, if I can do it, anyone can. And it's like, well, you also started off with a modest loan from your dad of $1 million to start your first business at age 22, or you actually have no college debt because your parents paid the bills, or or I could go on and on and on about all of the advantages
Yeah.
that a lot of these authors have. Um, so I was always very skeptical of them, and I also have always, at least, in my adult life, taken umbrage with the idea of universals about how to live life, because
Mhm.
what works for Jolenta isn't necessarily going to work for you. What works for me isn't necessarily going to work for Jolenta in lots of ways, because we all have different desires and we all have different baggage and we all have, different talents. We have so many different things we bring to the table. So what works for me, why would I write a book and say, this is what's going to happen for all of you out there?
Yeah.
It it doesn't logically make sense to me. So when Jolenta asked me to co-host the show with her, she knew that we were on kind of opposite ends of the spectrum
Yeah.
there.
There is a part of me right now at this point in my life where I'm like, there are just two different types of people in the world. People who go to Tony Robbins and like do that, and then people who don't go to Tony Robbins. And I am of the latter of like, I'm not a Tony Robbins person. I'm very much like, this does not, you can't just decide this is how everyone should be living your life. And look, I don't even have the deep dive of the Tony Robbins unless you want to go down like a BuzzFeed article thing. That's a whole separate episode of a podcast. But
Yeah.
what I will say is that is the issue that I have with a lot of self-help, is that it's this how-to of, relationships, this how-to for businesses and meetings, and how to like determine your self-worth, how to treat people and expect that if you treat them this way, they will treat you this way back. That's just how it's going to work. And I have or even how to grieve. That's a big one too that I think has been really, really interesting. It's also funny to me that we are in this kind of new age where self-help used to be a trope. Like even one of my like favorite movies in the fall is When Harry Met Sally. It's delightful. It's like
Ugh,
fall, New York. I
still
mean,
a
what's
perfect
movie.
better?
Still love it.
Kristen also loves it. Yeah. I don't dislike
Love it.
I
Yes.
just know Kristen loves it.
But there is that scene where like Sally and Harry kind of meet up and they're both kind of looking at self-help books like sheepishly. And that's what it used to be. It used to be the aisle in the bookstore for like the castaway toys, the lonely, the divorced, the emotionally and mentally unstable and unfit for society. And you'd like go with sunglasses on. And
I just
now
rewatched a Sex in the City where like Charlotte runs out of that aisle being like, travel, never mind travel, because everyone's like crying and
Yes.
sad in there. Sorry, I digress.
And now I feel like if I'm at a dinner party and I haven't read all the latest self-help books, like I'm behind. Like, it's like, well, what are you doing? Like, how are you bettering yourself? How are you improving yourself? How have you not read these books? Like, have you noticed this pendulum shift in even the way that self-help books are written now comparatively to, I mean, you guys have read so many on your podcast.
I think there's become a bigger shift where self-help and wellness and influencing have all sort of joined forces. And the influencing part is like the new ingredient, where we have like tweets that have gone viral about like how to have it all, that end up being stretched out into books, or someone who's got a viral TikTok account about, like getting up earlier, meditating, suddenly is the person writing that book. So all of a sudden you have authors who don't just have like cult followings for like their ideology, but have cult followings on like popular social media platforms. So it's much more in the zeitgeist.
Yeah, Jolenta, that's exactly what I was going to say as well. The influencer culture commingling with the self-help culture. But then on top of that, celebrities have dipped their toes more and more after that Tyra book that Jolenta lived by. There have been more and more celebrities who have essentially made themselves self-help experts, including Zac Efron, including obviously Gwyneth Paltrow. And I'm saying self-help experts in kind of a self-appointed way. And then on top of that, we see more self-help authors being turned into celebrities, being given their own shows like Marie Kondo. So this whole, celebrity culture, whether it's micro celebrities on Instagram or major billion-dollar Hollywood industry celebrities like Gwyneth Paltrow, I feel like all of that has helped bring us to this moment.
Is there a self-help book that you gravitate towards, that you actually like, that you have dog-eared, that you have highlighted, that you go back and reread over and over?
Well, I personally like any books that are about doing good in the world. How can I fix some of the issues that might be resulting in me being sad? Because a lot of self-help books are like, oh, are you feeling powerless in the world? Are you feeling sad? Well, sometimes the reason you're feeling powerless and sad is because there are structural inequalities, because there is misogyny, because there is racism, because there's classism. And sometimes, at least for me, what makes me feel better is not looking at a little post-it note on my mirror saying, you go girl, when I wake up in the morning. It's actually going out
Really?
into the world and
What?
maybe making the world a little bit more
Yeah.
equitable for girls
Right.
instead.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
find that to be the case. But on a slightly fluffier note, maybe not fluffy, but when I years ago, I did use a book that I did dog ear and I gave to several friends also it's called A Breakup Because It's Broken. And that book, I haven't read it in so long. I've now been married for quite a while, but I did use that book, before I met my husband. And it was just such a great reminder for me of like, it's okay to be upset. Breakups are lousy, but here is an action plan with things to do every day. That's one of the things I liked about the book. It actually had an action plan of what to do every day to get over, your feelings. But the overall message of the book I also loved was, the title of the book. It's called A Breakup Because It's Broken. So full disclosure, I did dog ear pages of that book back when I used it. In the present, I really like the books that are how to make the world better and how to put kindness into the world.
Yeah, were you gifted that book, The Breakup Because It's
Ooh.
Broken, or did you go seek it out?
I sought it out, much to look at Jolenta's surprise. She's like, "Oh, you got that yourself."
So
But
impressed.
You put your sunglasses on and just inched your way through the self-help section?
Yeah, and this was before everybody was getting books shipped to their homes with like Amazon or whatnot. I literally walked into the bookstore and I got it off of the shelf and I bought it. Yes, I did. And then I bought it for others who said it helped them. So I don't know what the book is actually like now. If I were to reread it after now, having lived by 80 self-help books with Jolenta, I might not feel the same way about the book as I did back then, but it did at the time help me.
Jolenta, do you have one that you keep by your bedside table?
Well, I would say I echo Kristen's sentiment about books that are about like community involvement and, becoming active to sort of change the institutions that keep things shitty as opposed to just sort of like mind over matter individually, like against the shitty things. But if we're going for like a book that I always go back to. I do always go back to What to Say When You Talk to Yourself by Shad Helmstetter, who is an actual doctor, unlike a lot of the self-help authors you might come across. Many of them will say they're doctors, but look into what kind of doctorate they have. Is it honorary? Does it have nothing
Dental.
to do
Yeah.
with psychiatry? Yeah, like yeah, is it maybe from a non-credible place? Anyway, but that book is a lot about just how negative thought patterns get sort of stuck in our heads and wired as sort of like rules about ourselves, and how to sort of undo those thought patterns and try to speak to yourself the way someone who loves you would, as opposed to like someone who's scolding an asshole would. And that's always good.
I don't what it's are we are not our thoughts, or our thoughts are not our feelings. No, there's like a simple way that it gets told, that it's I feel like it's been told to me by every therapist and a lot of self-help books that I have
Mhm.
read. But it's like, we are not our thoughts. Is that what it is? It's something along that line.
Something like
Um
that. I also get like our feelings aren't facts. So I
yes,
would say
that's
like
what
our
it is.
feelings about
Mm,
Yes.
ourselves
yes.
aren't facts necessarily. And like
Yes.
those facts can be changed.
Like, I'm not a post-it on the mirror person, but I feel like that's probably the only one that I would consistently want, as opposed to like the you
Right.
go girl, or like,
Yeah.
you be the sunshine, and like things like that.
Like reminder, like the darkness you feel shrouded in could not be based in fact, necessarily.
It's funny though, when I find myself in moments where I probably should be reading self-help books, that's when I want to reject them. I'm like, no, no, no. I don't need your help. I can navigate this very confusing human period within my life right now by myself, or pay a therapist to do it. But just sitting with my thoughts and my feelings and reading about it in a book, it makes me almost angry at the author. Like, "Ugh, why do you have it figured out, huh? Like, I'll get there. I'll figure it out myself."
I think though that that speaks to a lot of the human experience though. A lot of times we know what we need to do, we just aren't ready to do it yet. Like how many times
Mm,
have we worked a job that we were being undervalued at and we complained to our friends for weeks, if not months, if not years. Oh, my boss just treats me like crap. I'm always being undermined. And when maybe we just need to spend time being angry about it and processing it and driving our friends nuts while we're on repeat until we get to the point where we're ready to do it. I do think that oftentimes we know what we need to do. We're just not ready to yet. Whether it's,
Yeah.
quit that job or break up with that bad significant other. I think we usually kind of know in our guts what we need to do. But I think for a lot of us, it doesn't follow a logical path of like, well, I know this is wrong, so now I'm going to stop doing this thing, and now I'm going to behave in a way that's better for me. I don't know that many people who do all of those things in that logical time frame. I wish we all
Yeah.
did.
I know.
I wish for myself I had done that during a
Save me
million
so
different
much money.
situations.
So much
Yes,
money on therapy and books. Yeah.
yes.
Do you guys are you therapy people? Do you like therapy?
big time. I'm a big time
Both of
therapy
us.
person. In
Yeah,
therapy currently.
Do you
yeah.
show up to your therapy appointments like because you read? I mean, I think you would. I'm assuming you guys probably read more self-help than the average person based off of your
Probably, yeah.
podcast. Do you feel sometimes like you go and you're like, oh, I know this one. Nope, I read this in a book like 2 weeks ago. No, like where you're kind of toe to toe with your therapist on different ideologies and facts that you've, or just thoughts of how to process certain emotions or times in life because you've read it in a book.
I tend to be sort of a brat in therapy. And if I'm like, I've read this, I've already I'll be like, I've decided it didn't work. I live by this. And she'll be like, but did you approach it this way? And I'll be like, shit, no, not at all. She'll be like, yeah, like let me guide you through it with like your unique idiosyncrasies in mind. And like, let's try it again. Like you don't have it figured out. I usually use it as an answer to be like, I have that figured out already. Or like, I know that doesn't work for me, and she'll usually poke holes in that and sort of find reasons for me to try again or try it differently.
Yeah, I always I try to go toe to toe as much as I can, or I try to really just deflect and be like, so, but what did you do this weekend? Oh,
Right.
you're not allowed to tell me. It is very frustrating right now in therapy. I just keep asking, like, if you can just tell me what to do, I'll do it. But if you just
Right.
tell me, and he's like, that's not how therapy works. I can't just like tell you what to do. I'm like, but what if you did? And then I just tried. Let's just do a social experiment.
I mean, on that
Yeah.
note, though, I do think like there are different kinds of therapists, and some of them will,
Yeah.
some I have friends who have therapists who give them assignments, and then there's the psychotherapy model where all they're going to do is repeatedly say, "And how did that make you feel? Tell me
Mhm.
more about that." I think there's different models of therapy that do different things. And I also am one of those people who likes assignments, like just, you
Yeah.
don't necessarily have to tell me what to do with my entire life
Yeah.
or this major thing in my life, but can you give me assignments or something proactive to help me get there?
Yeah.
Um, I like being told what to do. I guess that's what it comes down to. Tell me what to do.
Which book has told you what to do and you said, yeah, I like this advice? And which self-help book has told you what to do and you're like, fuck you, book. Like, you don't know me.
Well, first of all, I want to say most self-help books don't tell us what to do at all. They tell us what to think, which
Ooh.
drives Jolenta and I nuts. Like, if you believe it, you can be it. All you have to do is visualize yourself with that $1 million check in your hands. And that $1 million check will be in your hands because thoughts become things. And then a lot of books just have no rhyme or reason to the steps. Like, it's kind of hard to suss out, like, what actually are the steps in this book? Is this just one person rambling for 400 pages? What are the action items in this book? So I would say a very large percentage of books are extremely confusing and badly organized, but there are probably nuggets in there that'll speak to somebody in some way or another. Otherwise, they wouldn't be bestsellers. But in my opinion, not enough have concrete, clear, actionable steps.
Do you think that that's probably become the biggest, essentially, trope of the self-help book world is just like the thoughts immediately become things? Like, we all tried The Secret. You know, I tried The Secret. And I do 100% that they believe in the importance of setting goals for yourself and having a direction that you're walking towards. Of course, you can't just sit there and be like, this is what I want to do and I have no idea how to do it. Like, you have to take the steps and it helps. Like, if you're booking a flight, you got to know which city you're going to. Like, you got to kind of know where you're going to hopefully end up. You can't just like wing it. You're just going to get very, very lost. But this, like, but to say that, like, that's just what's going to happen if you just think it and believe it. That's exactly how it works. I mean, I think, like, do you guys have any kind of witchy woo woo or sense of the universe that I mean, there is also a lot of that can be brought into, like, we can start talking about prayer and how that applies to then, you know, your thoughts becoming things. But is that kind of the most consistent trope that you read about in a lot of these books?
I would say, yeah, that one comes up the most, whether it's sort of veiled in like sort of business, like get ahead. Like there's always an element of like picture yourself there and you'll be there. Or like the reason you'll get there is because you'll visualize harder and that will make you work harder. Or, you know, there's usually an element of that. And while I do love sort of a witchy woo woo, like I have many a crystal by my bedside and perhaps one like on my little buzzer box near the front door, you know? But I like it in a sense that it gives me comfort and it's an aesthetic I enjoy. Um but I can't buy into it too much. As you know, I'm dealing with being treated for lupus right now, like with some serious medication. And like I've been sick for a long time. And I really can't afford to think that like I brought this on myself and sort of get better and try to like power through this. So it's a mix of like, I love sort of believing in the universe and that like things even out and like energy is infinite, but also like it's not like me putting out negative shit in the world like made me sick. It's just like the luck of the draw and genetics.
You talk about your lupus diagnosis and your path to like the medication that you're on your podcast by the book. How has it been reading certain maybe like toxic positive books that kind of lean towards toxic positivity? How has that experience been when you are in the middle of a moments of things being very hard or scary or things feeling out of your control, reading things that because I feel like that's another trope that has really
Right.
come on hard, this whole
Totally.
like toxic positivity.
Sometimes it's nice to read books that tell you to look for the small things that can bring you joy, like where you don't expect it, whether it's just like walking the dog or like digging around in your house. But you know, for the most part, it's become sort of like almost more funny for me. Like as someone who just like can't, like if I bought into that, I would just hate myself and my life so much more in a way. If I just thought I could like think my way out of this and like not need as much like medical support or whatever, like I would be losing my mind. So in a way it's sort of help me see the level of privilege that comes with positive thinking and like all the things we forget about, whether it's, you know, institutionalized racism or ableism, that just like the people who think they've made it to the top purely because they like willed it with their minds are forgetting about all these legs up they have, whether it be like a good immune system, wealthy parents, you know, the color of their skin, you name it.
Oh God, I just hate language like the universe never gives you more than you can handle. You know what? The universe gives lots of people more than they can handle, and a lot of
Yeah.
those people are dead right now. You know, the
Yeah.
universe gives, I wouldn't even call it the universe, our own bodies, our own environments, our own genetics sometimes give us cancer and we die, unfortunately. And uh, you know what? That is a case of being given more than you can handle because now you're dead. And um, you know, or the idea of I should be thankful for everything terrible that happened to me because that made me who I am. It's like it's okay to not be thankful for that. It's totally
Yeah.
okay to be like
Yeah.
that sucked and I did not enjoy that and I'm not thankful for it. I am, I'm grateful I survived it, but yeah, I hate that kind of stuff so much. And one thing that both Jolenta and I just cannot stand is the constant emphasis on forgiveness in the self-help world. There is
Ooh.
so much emphasis on you when you're choosing not to forgive, the only person you're punishing is yourself. You're choosing to be bitter when you don't forgive. You're choosing to live in a place of ugliness for the rest of your life. And it's like, no, that's not true. Sometimes I just don't forgive, and that's okay. And actually, in Jolenta's estimation, one of the happiest people she's ever known.
Right. Yeah. Like sometimes too happy. Well, and it's like there's a difference between, you know, learning you didn't deserve something and like and like forgiving in the definition sense of the word, where it's like you don't
Like,
have
I
to
don't need to
forgive
absolve
to
you.
sort of
Why would I
Yeah.
move
absolve you for what you
past
did?
being like I didn't deserve this and like that doesn't make me who I am, but that doesn't mean like that person's good to go in my eyes either, you know.
Yeah. Are there any books that come to mind where you're just like, how the hell did this ever get published? Like, I feel like just the book Why Men Love Bitches. I mean, you really brought me
Ugh.
back to just a very bizarre time in like my way of thinking and how my brain worked as like a young woman. Just reading that title, I was like, I had a physical reaction of like, oh my gosh, like I took that so seriously. Are there
Mm.
any books that come to mind where you're like, how did we ever think that this was how did a publisher sit down and read this and go, "Yep, good to go. Good to go. Let's help the world one page at a
Ugh.
time with this book."
Pick 3 is the first one that comes to mind by
Yes.
Randy
What's
Yes.
Zuckerberg.
that?
It was based on, I believe, a tweet that she made about how she's able to manage it all. That like or it was
Yes.
either a tweet or her answering a question on a panel about
Mm.
how she had it all that she parlayed into sort of speaking about it and then it being a book. But it's like this was a great nugget of an idea, but when you expand it, it's ridiculous. And basically the premise is there are like 5 categories in life. It's like family, work, sleep, exercise, and I don't remember the last one,
I
friends,
don't
maybe?
remember, but yeah.
But and it was like and you only pick 3, and it's like, when sleep is one of the options, like, that should be picked every day, but apparently we're opting out numerous times a week because you're only picking 3, and it's like, "What in the world?" Or like, "Sorry, kids, it's an exercise sleep day, so,
Yeah.
like, no you." Like, it's just so it comes from such a place of privilege of someone who can outsource, uh the other, you know, 2 things they're not picking to people either they're related to or people they're paying to do those jobs. And it's just so actually unlivable. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, I'm sure like a single mother with children who is working multiple jobs on an hourly wage, just trying to figure out healthcare, really it's just like, if only I picked 3. Like, if only
Yeah,
I
it's
could
like,
just
today's not a
pick
work
3.
day. Sorry.
Yeah,
Like,
sorry,
I'm
guys.
like, no, we don't have that luxury, a lot of us.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
So that's one where I'm like, how did this get past so many steps? How did this get past so many stages of like green lighting to be in my hands now? A book like that.
Yeah. And one other thing I want to point out about that book that comes up in a lot of books, because the author of that book, she's a Zuckerberg, she's got money flying out of the vents. She's doing so well that none of her categories include things like housekeeping or, things that the
Yes.
rest of us have to do every day, like wash dishes, prepare like meals,
Groceries.
like grocery shopping, sweep the floor, laundry. None of these things are even like on the list of things that she does. And I remember Jolenta and I just like, what about those things? That takes up like way more of my day than exercise. Like her fitness, the fact that fitness is a category for her, but not these other things.
I mean, I am trying to move my body more just for my emotional and mental health. But it is funny to me, the commitment to like, well, first, if you go to a yoga class, you got to drive there for 45 minutes and then it's an hour and a half of a class and then you have to shower and then you got to drive home. And that's like 3 hours out of the day right there. I'm like, no, that is a full-time job. There's a lot of more important things to be doing for a lot of people in the world. Have you guys ever done any sort of self-help seminars? Have you taken this like off the page and into a room where you've heard speakers? Have you entered that world at all?
I went to an acting conservatory, which is basically like a 2.5-year-long yoga retreat. I once did a thing. I grew up in Portland, Oregon, and just a friend's mom was doing this at her house when I was in high school, and we happened to be hanging out there, so we did it. So I did like a coal walking ceremony, which has a big element of self-help in the beginning. You sort of have to psych yourself up mentally, and they're basically like the amount of like any amount of pain or like burn you have is like the amount of doubt in your mind and stuff like that. When really it's just, with the level of sweat and the amount of time you're on the coals, like you usually don't get burnt.
Usually, but that this is a thing. People have done these and then they hide it away from like the programs that do these, where actually there is a percentage of people that totally fuck up their feet and get burned and like and get hurt.
And I, at the time, totally bought into it and was like, yes, like I have no doubt, like I believe in myself. In person, I think it's way easier to get sort of revved up into that like mindset because you can look around and see people buying in. So it makes it easier to buy in yourself.
That herd mentality a little bit. And
Right.
we're all here together. And they make a lot of these things now as like a giant freaking concert. I mean, there's like t-shirt guns and, pyrotechnics and loud music. And it's like, it's going to wake you up and jolt you out of your seat and feel like an out of body experience because you're being created to like be in this big, loud, exciting, like, like the center of the Coliseum in a sense, it's just like going to like battle in a way of like battling your old demons to like emerge from this experience as a new person. Here I am, which is just wild to me just to kind of even read on. I've not been to one, but I just was wondering if either of you guys have ever been, or even just like any sort of retreat. Because I'm like, is that the thing? Maybe instead of like a self-help thing, maybe that's like dipping my toes into just like some sort of quiet retreat where like I eat really healthy food and sneak wine into my room like I'm a teenager and then just like meditate and yoga and hike all day. Like, is that going to be good? Is that the new self-help book?
I would love to go to a retreat where I get massages and where I swim and go on hikes. I want to go on the kind of retreat that like Elizabeth Taylor used to go on, where it's ostensibly a health retreat, but it's really just like living at a resort. That's what I want to do.
With like cigarettes and gin and just, all the good things there.
11 a.m., my first gin of the day, 12, my next one. I don't know.
With a massage.
Yes.
Yeah, all of that.
It's important, the combination. Otherwise, it's not working. It's a very important combination.
Stroll around the grounds.
Do you guys find yourself now gifting your friends self-help books more regularly? Like, or are you now at this point, you've read so many where you're like, nope, that is not a move that anyone should do. It is a personal thing to purchase a self-help book. You should not be giving people books.
I don't give self-help books because I think some people take that as I am diagnosing you. You need to fix this thing
Right.
that's wrong with you. It's kind of like that passive aggressive move where dudes who give their girlfriends gym memberships as just a surprise present. It's like that, where it's like, are you trying to say
Thanks.
something about me?
Yeah.
What? What are you trying to say about me? Um, that being said, as I said in the past, when I was reading, it's called A Breakup Because It's Broken. And I had friends who were incredibly forlorn and, going through the wars, as my husband says. I was, I did say, this book really helped me. Do you want to borrow it? Can I get this book for you that, really helped me?
There's lots of times where someone will be like, "Oh, you're living by that? Could I get a copy?" And I'll be like, "Sure, let me like share mine with you afterwards or whatever." Or I'm also, someone will be like, did you live by this? Was it good? Like, I'll give advice, but like unsolicited, especially now that I've lived by so many and realize some can be like so inadvertently like insulting or make you feel insecure or worse about what they're trying to help with. Like, never unsolicited.
Is there any book that you guys have read or practiced from by the book where at the time it didn't apply to your life and you were just like, you didn't get it? And then all of a sudden, a year or two later, it just popped back into your brain like, oh, actually, this does apply to my life right now.
Anytime I'm reorganizing or doing like a deep clean, I do always go back to Marie Kondo.
Yeah.
Just when it comes to like decluttering, not the like lifestyle aspects of like how to maintain it necessarily, about like, don't keep anything in your shower, put it all in a cupboard so there's no visual clutter. But if I'm like, it's time to go through all this random shit in this closet, then I always go back to it and be like, have I used this? Does it bring me any joy? Am I keeping it out of obligation because someone gave it to me?
Did you guys ever do the love languages or any kind of relationship book that really applied?
We did the 5 love languages. And as much as I hate categories, I absolutely abhor putting people in categories so much. The big lesson I took away from that book that I still think about is, a lot of us are taught the golden rule growing up, like, oh, treat others as you want to be treated. And the 5 love languages says, no, don't treat people the way you want to be treated. Treat them the
Mhm.
way they want to be treated. And I think that's really important. Treat people the way
Yeah.
they want to be treated. And not everybody wants to be treated the same way. Not everybody experiences, or feels loved when you do this one thing. Some people feel more loved when you do this other thing. And so I think that book is valuable, even though I think there are probably way more than 5 ways that people feel love in the world, not just 5.
Yeah.
But I do think that's a good lesson to keep in mind. Like, what makes me feel good doesn't necessarily make you feel good.
Where do you guys find the next self-help book? Because I think that's where a lot of people don't know where to start. Whether they're in grief, whether they're trying to learn about love in a new way and how they can communicate to their partner better, whether they're in the middle of a breakup, whether they're, stuck in a job where they just don't know what comes next. And do they, forge on, or do they start, a new path? Where can people start to find the best self-help book that might apply to them?
Everybody out there should just listen to our show. It's called By the Book, and we will tell you what books to live by.
Yes. I would say word of mouth, whether it's word of mouth from our show. You want to get advice about what to read from someone who's perhaps read it or it's helped them or they've like tried on the advice, whether it's us, because I have to plug our show, or a friend. I would solicit advice on books as opposed to reading reviews, because you never know like how many of those were bought and paid for or just had a better publicist or a better publisher behind them that just got them more visibility. I would trust someone who has actually benefited from the advice over someone who like maybe wrote about it.
I'd be more likely to trust somebody who has my same sensibilities, like somebody who is really into, let's say, horoscopes and Myers-Briggs and those kinds of things, if they loved the book and they said it was life-changing, I'm probably going to think this book is not for me because we don't have the same sensibilities about things. And that's okay. They can have their sensibilities and find that book transformative, but I will know immediately that's probably not for me. Another thing I just want to advocate for, closing the book and getting rid of it if it's not working for you. Whether you're reading 5 pages, 50 pages, 100 pages into this book, and it's just rubbing you the wrong way, it's okay to just say, I'm not going to read this book. I'm going to stop right now. This isn't speaking to me. I feel like it's blaming me for things. I feel like it's dripping in privilege, whatever it is. If there's something about it that is viscerally like hurting you or bothering you, then it's okay to put that book away. It totally is. So I've even done that when I've been 80% of the way through a book before. And I'm like, oh, sunk costs. I've made it this far. I just need to do the last 20%. No, you know what? Putting this book in the trash. I don't need it anymore. That's fine.
Recycling.
Yeah. Putting it in the recycle bin, composting the book. I don't know if you can do that.
Yes.
But it is interesting because it is usually in times of uncertainty when anyone is seeking out some sort of self-help book. It's so hard to be reading something and feel like, well, I'm not getting it in real life. And now I'm reading a book about it and I'm still not getting it. But how important it is to realize that your experience is really singular to you and how you respond to the world. And it is not one size fits all at all. And I think that is kind of what can be a pitfall in such a beautiful space of self-help and people sharing not only their stories and or experiences, but professionals also trying to help guide you in how it's going to work. It's the same thing with, doctors in medicine, like what the style of a doctor and how they talk to you, like, especially with OBs. I feel like this is where it always, just for the ladies, I feel like it's how a friend of mine might want to be spoken to by her doctor is completely different the way that I would want to be spoken to by my doctor in the same exact checkup. I feel like that can be applied to self-help books. Exactly what you're saying, Kristen. If it's not working, it's not you. Sometimes it's just the book is just not into you and you're just not that into the book. And it just all goes back to
Yes.
Yeah, it's not like, oh, I need to force myself to like swallow this bitter medicine. It's like, no, it's a self-help book. Put it down. Find one that helps, like, and doesn't make you feel shittier.
Okay, well, as self-help book experts, what would you write about in your self-help book?
We already wrote a book.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
No, don't worry.
I'm like, is it a full-on self-help book?
Ish, yeah.
Some people have called it an anti-self-help book.
Okay, perfect.
Right.
It's called How to Be Fine, What We Learned from Living by the Rules of 50 Self-Help Books. And we wrote that like 30 books ago.
I say we've lived by more since then. But
yeah, we've lived by way more since then. But the book is broken down into 3 sections. After living by all these books, what actually helped? What didn't, and what do we wish more books would talk about that they don't? And, we bring in the lessons we learn from By the Book. We bring in lessons from our own lives that we haven't even talked about on By the Book. And the overarching message of the book is really like, we don't need to aim to be the richest, the best, the prettiest, the whateverest. It's okay to, aim to be fine. And it's okay if my version of fine looks different than yours.
Yes.
And it's also okay that this makes me feel fine and that doesn't make me feel fine, even though the author of this book keeps telling me, no, that should make me feel great. It's okay if it doesn't.
We do kind of live in this, I feel like a chapter in time, or maybe it's always been like this, where I feel like you're supposed to be operating at like the height of the roller coaster at all times, where everyone's like, no, you're supposed to be right at the top at all times with your hands up, just going wee. And the reality is you there's ups and downs and twists and turns and really jarring stops where you're like, ow, did I hurt my neck from that? Nope, I'm gonna be okay. We're still on the roller coaster. It's much more complicated and nuanced than that, but especially in the social media age of just everything has to be great and happy all the time. And even exactly, as we were talking about earlier, all the hard times are so hard because then it can be better. And that's the reason for it. It is very, interesting navigating the tropes of help in the self-help world. But I'm excited to continue listening to all the books that you guys are reading, and something that it's not necessarily self-help, but it's something that I like to do on this podcast just to kind of like cool down from the conversation and go about our day is 5 little check-ins that are kind of fun. So one is really about like what you like, thumbs up, what you like, something that you know, something that you hate, something that you love, and just a quirky little fact that you want to leave us with. So something that you guys like.
I like being here with you. You've been just lovely today. And this has been really nice. It really has been. Somebody talking to us from Nashville, from where Dolly Parton made it big.
Yeah.
I like this. This is nice. Thanks.
I like that. Jolenta.
I mean,
that's a tough answer to follow.
Yeah, wow. I was going to say, like, the season's changing. Like, there's a bit of, like, a hint of a cool breeze today in New York. And it feels like just the beginning of fall being like, hey, around the corner. And I love that when it's, like, still warm and summery, but you got that cool fall breeze coming in. It's perfect weather.
What is something you guys know?
I know that I'm never going to know everything. And my life got way better once I accepted that. Because frankly, I think when I was younger, so much of my identity, especially as a kid, was based on Kristen's smart. She knows a lot. And my life got way better when my identity became something much broader than that I wasn't known as smart Kristen. And oh God, it's such a relief to like accept that I just don't know very much. I really don't.
Oh, wow. Kristen, my follow-ups are always going to be so surfacey compared to yours.
No, that's
I
not
was
true.
gonna
Stop
say,
it.
one thing I know that I've learned dealing with lupus, and I lost a lot of my hair and buzzed it all off during the height of my lupus flare. One thing I've learned is you can work with any hairdo. You might think, oh, I can only have a bob or I can only have this length. Believe me, I buzzed it and made it work at every level. Like, it might have freaked a few people out once in a while, but for the most part, like, your look and the way you present, you can make it work even with any length of hair.
I love that.
And I know that now.
And you know that. What do you guys hate?
Jolenta, I'm going to let you go first this time.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. What do I hate? There are so many things.
So many things. So many things.
Right now, what do I hate? I hate snoring so much right now.
Are you the snorer or
both
are you
my
being
partner and
okay.
he snores, I snore. Like, I swear there isn't a moment where one of us isn't waking the other up lately to be like, turn over, you're snoring. And I'm like, snoring is a menace in my household and I hate it right now. I don't know if it's allergies. I don't know what it is, but like, I hate it. There is no upside.
No. You can always make a hair work, like a hairstyle work. You cannot make a snore work. There's no like
snore never
chic
works.
Snore. No.
No. I hate cilantro. And I know that I have no control over this. I'm just not wired right to process it the right way. When people tell me it tastes fresh, I try to imagine, what do they mean when they say it tastes fresh?
It is nice.
Because this tastes
crisp
terrible.
And fresh.
That's funny.
I don't know.
Are you like into Mexican food at all then? Are you just like, do you go to a Mexican restaurant with like tacos?
Food.
Oh, I love Mexican food so much.
She just
I love it.
cilantro.
I just ask for no cilantro. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
One of those people where like genetically it tastes like dish soap. Isn't that what it?
For a lot of people, but I'm on the even more extreme end where it tastes like aluminum foil on metal fillings.
Ooh,
so
whoa.
It almost hurts my inner ears when I eat it.
That
it
is
tastes
so
terrible.
wild. I'm so sorry.
Yeah, it is. I know.
Yeah, but I love Mexican food. No dissing on Mexican food here. No.
Okay, something that you love.
I love having a dog. There's a portrait of an old family dog behind me. I'm a big dog person. I love having a dog. I know Kristen's allergic and I'm sorry for her, I just think they are so full of love. And whenever I'm like full of hate about snoring or anything else, I like pet him for 1 second and I'm like, God damn it. I can't think the world is all bad once I see like a little dog or maybe even a cat, like just pets perhaps. But
Yeah.
I just love it. I love having that extra little happy bundle of love.
I also love dogs. I wish I weren't allergic. Something else I love is I love being that person who's walking down the street, who's smiling ear to ear like a lunatic because I'm listening to a good podcast or the day is just nice. And sometimes people smile back at me. Oftentimes in New York, they avert their eyes or stare at the ground when they pass me. But some people just are so excited to see somebody as happy as me. And I'm also very non-threatening because my stature is small. I'm only 5'3". So I don't actually look like a threatening maniac when they see me. I just look like happy. Here's a happy short girl walking down the street. And I love being that person. I love being the person who has a little pep in my step and a smile on my face and who's listening to just the most idiotic celebrity podcast or whatever it is and just laughing and laughing while I walk down the street.
Have you had one of those days recently?
Oh yeah, I do it every day. Every day I go on
Every
a walk
day.
and
I
listen to
love
something
that.
silly and I smile and I laugh and it's
Oh,
funny. Every once in a while people will stop me and say something nice to me because of it.
yeah,
Oh,
it
that's
does. It does change your day. I had that. That was my Monday. I had one of those just obscenely happy days where it was like the weather was beautiful. I just had a pep in my step. I slept, like I had like
Ah,
things to
nice.
do and everything went well. And it's like every place you go into, you're like, hi. And everyone's like, hello. And you just feel like you're in this like movie montage moment of just like a really cheerful day. But I love that you've been able to bring this into that energy into all your days or most days of just having like a little walkabout. I feel like New York is also easy for that too, I would assume. Being able to just like
Oh,
leave
yeah.
your house and immediately walk into the
Yeah.
world. Yeah. Okay,
Yes.
what's a quirky little fact about both of you?
Quirky fact about me is speaking of pets, I'm on a pet rampage right now. I used to have pet rats when I was
Mm,
younger. And
mm.
while some people hate them and are freaked out by them, they are really smart and really sweet.
I've had two different friends in my life that have had pet rats. One would bring them to work. I had a
Mm.
job and she'd even like sometimes bring them to work. And then other friends, they'd be like, oh yeah, no, they're so smart. You can like teach them things.
You can train
And I
them.
just, it's their tails.
It's the
And
tails. No, people have
it's the
trouble
tails
getting
and
on
the
board.
dude rats have very big rat balls. And I know that like
I had
they do.
I had
They really
3
do.
different males before I went to females, and I was like, oh wow, the non-visible like giant balls are it's kind of fun to not be dealing with that. They're like two
It's-
giant like almonds hanging off their butts. Like it's bizarre how big their balls are. That is true.
Yes.
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 I mean, can you imagine if the same proportions existed in humans?
That would be
No.
obscene. It would be
It
obscene.
would be hilarious, but
And
just
like beach balls.
aggressive. Yes. So that's my only thing with rats
You're
is just
right,
the
the
tails
balls are
and the
rough.
big rat balls. Kristen, what's a quirky fact about you?
Well, a lot of our listeners know this already, but I attended Meghan Markle and Prince Harry's wedding, and I was not actually in the chapel. I was with the masses on the lawn. I was crying. I was cheering. I was broadcasting it for one of my podcasts at the time, and I am still a royal reporter. I currently host a show for Newsweek called The Royal Report. I am Team Meghan and Harry, and that wedding was one of the best days of my life, including my own wedding. It was one of the best days of my life.
Are you ready for Megan to write a book?
Oh, yeah. And I'm totally listening to her podcast, Archetypes, right now. I mean, please, everybody, listen to the episode with Mariah Carey. My God,
Yes.
Mariah's
Oh my gosh.
fantastic.
I have to listen.
Yes. Please listen, Mariah. Ooh, yeah.
I mean, every time I think about Mariah Carey, it goes from like Christmas to just like her being epic in her voice and fantasy, and then also immediately to the Cribs episode. Every single time I just see her in the bathtub with all the bubbles, just like flicking them at the camera in her heels on her little workout machine, and I'm like,
she's
that's
the queen.
the
How
self-help
did we
book I
get
want to
so
read.
lucky? How do we get so
I know.
lucky?
Yes. we are alive at the same time as Mariah Carey. The universe does provide sometimes.
Yes, it does.
It does give us what we can handle.
And I feel so lucky I got to sit with you guys today. Thank you so much. Truly, your podcast is fantastic. I love By the Book, and I love just being able to hang out with both of you guys. And thank you so much for hanging out and joining me today on a Superbloom podcast while I try to navigate the world, maybe needing to adopt a couple self-help books in my lane. So thank you. I really appreciate it. This has been a Superbloom podcast, hosted by me, Candice King, produced by Melissa D. Montz and Diamond Imprint Productions. Post-production sound by Chris Henry, and advertisement partnerships with Acast.